We were never afraid to take a risk. And we were in an industry that is notorious for being a roller coaster ride. About every 7 years, there's a big downturn, and it just kind of runs in cycles. And so you make money and you lose money. You make money and you lose money. And like I'd said before, described before, we've moved back and forth from Houston to Tulsa 2 or 3 times. But that last time we moved to Houston, so we picked up and didn't have a job. We had 6 kids and 9 kids, and we packed it all up and moved to Houston and started again.
Hey everybody, this is Cohort 4 Week 4 blog update, and we'll see how this one goes. This week I've published 2 episodes of my Crypto Sapiens AI meets Web3 intersection series from the Unrestricted Intelligence Summit, with an episode of Gary Shang and another one with Melissa Turner, both amazing guests and great perspective on AI and Web3. I published a new episode 5 of the podcast Many Such Cases that I'm doing. I called it Many Such Things last week. It's Many Such Cases. And I kicked off a new spinoff from that called Connecting the Dots. I also edited and published an episode of Humpty's show called On-Chain Alpha. And this week he had Swaroop from Powerloom on. That was a really hard one because I barely understand the concepts. That's the thing about the Web3 space. It's sometimes it's so hard to understand, even just grasp your head around what some people are talking about sometimes, but you just have to keep going with it and keep digging in, and eventually you'll get it. So then I also edited and published 2 workshop podcast episodes with the University of Ethereum. And all this work is paid in some way, and all of it's in the Web3 space. None of it is corporate. So receiving this DAO Punks grant has allowed me to focus on this type of work and build up my work portfolio in this space so I can really just focus on Web3, which is what I want to do. But as a result, my time's become scarce. This week, it's flown by. I've honestly been under a lot of stress, and my bandwidth has been at its limit. And I even left my keys in the ignition of my car 3 times this week, causing my battery to die. So yeah, definitely a sign of stress for sure. And however, now I've had a bit of a writer's block as to what to write about this week for this blog post update. And it's not a burden. I love it. But now that I'm finally actually sitting still for a moment and not working on other projects, I can focus on something personal for me, which I've not yet allowed myself time to think about and process yet. And I've been semi-consciously procrastinating this, as it's been super difficult for me to find the time alone to properly process it all. To begin this week, I received a package from UPS that I had to sign for, and the package contained vinyl records that I'd made. On March... Oh, check it out here. It's pretty cool. It's got the clear record, and as you can see in the middle, there's ashes. So on March 23rd, 2022, I recorded my mom and dad in a personal family podcast episode. I asked them some basic questions about their life, their interests, their favorite moments, and some other stuff. By that time, my dad had already been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Previously, when I thought of Parkinson's, I thought of Michael J. Fox and how, as sad as it is, he's been living with Parkinson's for a very long time. So I just thought that's how the disease went. However, in my dad's case, he degenerated very quickly and died a year and a half later on October 19th, 2023. I was there, I was holding his hand, and it was tough. So as a result, this podcast recording has become like gold to me. I also put it up on YouTube so family and friends could listen. My dad didn't want a big expensive funeral and a bunch of boohooing and fanfare about him. He's pretty humble. But he did want his memory to be preserved and for his voice to carry on. At that time, I was recording my daily Eureka Street crypto podcast morning episodes, and he would watch every single day on YouTube, him and my mom. And Yeah, I think he saw this and he realized how important it is that his story is told as well. So I came up with the idea of recording him and putting it on this record to pass down for generations. And he wanted to be cremated, so the record presser put his ashes in there. After he died, I got the records on order and made a version of it for YouTube so more people could listen without having to order more of these expensive records. But who knows what would or could happen with YouTube? I mean, they are, after all, a centralized corporation and could at any moment decide to sell, dissolve, get hacked, or censor anything at any time, which they do. So as a plebe, an entity like YouTube, though, seems too big for anything like that to happen. But if you really think about it, large corporate companies and organizations shift constantly like sands on a beach. Think about Kodak or Compaq or the 8-track player. And of course, Blockbuster, which even has a DAO dedicated to it. Have you ever tried converting or transferring those files stored on or made with any of those old products? It's a real pain in the ass, even if you own the footage or data stored. So imagine if Kodak or Compaq owned that footage or data. Companies that we took for granted as mainstays seem to dissolve almost overnight. So if Kodak happened to have owned your photos back then, you'd be totally screwed. So unless you have gold, cash, a vinyl record, a book, or papyrus document in your hand, or locked in a safe in your house, if it is online for the most part nowadays, unless it's on a blockchain, it's stored in a server owned by a centralized and hierarchical organization. In the past, digital items did not even seem real to people. A digital asset is a totally new concept. So as a result, we've not placed the same vigilance towards ownership and preservation of them like we have for in real life assets. However, if you look at many people's Facebook profiles, you find a lifetime of thoughts, images, and interaction with other people. Those lives are effectively owned by Facebook. The version I've made of the podcast that I made with my parents is pretty much owned by YouTube at this point. I do have a copy of it on my computer, but if my computer gets damaged and I've not preserved that file, then it's gone to the dissipating sands of time. Our most valued possessions and memories of those we love need to be owned by us, even digitally. If those items are digital, then aside from printing, minting, pressing, painting, or etching them there's been no way to own them. That's why I pressed this record. Everything, even the records I made, this record eventually gets overcome by the power of time, and we all get forgotten about, right? So it doesn't matter, right? This nihilistic view may be right, but it's depressing. And we never know the potential resilience a memory or story will play on someone else's life down the road. So yes, I have this vinyl record I made. How long will it stand the test of time? Will the next generations even listen or care? Another thing I could do to preserve it is put it on something like pods.media or some other decentralized podcast platform. Will on-chain media be a solution for digital permanence? Will my dad's podcast last longer on-chain than on vinyl? Would my dad's podcast last longer in the custody of an entity like a DAO than in my sole possession? I don't have the answers to these questions, but these are things I'm finally being allowed to think about now that I've had the time to sit down and think and process. We're always trying to find new and better ways to preserve our memories because in the end, that's all we really have. Now that our memories fully exist in a digital form, we need to preserve those too. Do we even exist without them? So thanks again to the DAO Punks for allowing me this platform and the financial space to be able to ponder these questions and process these emotions when I need to the most.